thinking. I just feel like it's going to be an all offensive game.
Yeah, we could talk about the over-under. 61 points, the second highest in NFL playoff history.
All right. Whenever you're ready, then.
Okay. Are you recording now?
Yep.
All right. All right. Welcome to episode 5 of the Banana Stand, formerly known as the Corner 3. We are a podcast on sports, and today we're going to be talking about NFL. I'm your host, Mike. I'm joined today with Kenny and our producer, Ray, on the January 16th Martin Luther King episode of the Banana Stand. So this week we're going to be talking about the NFL divisional weekend and the conference championship matchups. Had a lot of really good games this weekend. So Ray, can you start us off with the playoff prediction update?
Sure, Mike. So as a recap of our predictions, right now we have Johnny and Kenny in the lead with 5 points each, and then yourself, Mike, and me with 4 points. Johnny's in the best position right now, as he's the only one with his Super Bowl champion still in the hunt. He chose the Packers. As for myself and Mike, we both picked the Chiefs to win it all, and we were both knocked out this week.
Yes, join me.
Joining Kenny, who picked the Giants.
We get to repick every week, right? That's how it works.
We do get to repick at a loss of half a point, so we'll repick as we go today.
Yeah, and as a reminder for our viewers or listeners, the loser of the bet has to do a session of Bikram yoga, which should be really fun, and we're gonna force him to video record it, and we'll place it somewhere online for our viewers to watch. So let's get into the NFC games. First game of the night was the Falcons at the Seahawks. Falcons win 36-20. Are the Falcons? I hate asking this question because it's such a trite question, but how good do we think the Falcons actually are? Are they a legit team? Because in the past, I think they've had a lot of really good regular season runs where they look dominant on offense and they just collapse at some point. They're in the conference championships now. What do you guys think?
I think the Falcons are legit. This is the year where they can really go all the way. But at the same time, I don't know if they can get past the Packers because it seems like they're both the same kind of team, an all-offense team with little to no defense. They just put up tons and tons of points, but if you're doing the same thing against the other teams, they're also doing the same thing. I'm not sure how that's going to go for them.
So I could see looking at the scores, they're all offense, but to me, these teams are very different offensively. The Falcons are actually a run first, indoor, run fast. They Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman team, really just Matt Ryan slinging it on these checkdowns to Tevin Coleman for massive yardage gains. The Packers, while they score a lot, they're mostly just Aaron Rodgers running around behind his line, slinging it 20 yards downfield to Randall Cobb or Jared Cook. So quite different in their offense. And I trust the Falcons more this weekend. Run first in the playoffs.
One thing I that we actually didn't talk about is Julio Jones. We didn't even mention him. I mean, he had a decent game, 6 receptions for 67 yards and touchdown. I feel like he's actually been underutilized in the playoffs, and for big portions of the season. I think it's and clearly it's working for the Falcons. They have a really good balance of the run and the pass. But I think he's that extra threat that they need when, if the Packers sell out and stop the run, it's really hard to do when you have Julio Jones, getting those big possessions and generating first downs one after the other. Taylor Gabriel is a big threat too, with his speed. And Sanu, he's not a showstopper by any means, but I think he's done very well as a number 2, number 3 type of guy. So I think the Falcons have a chance against anyone. They in boxing they call it puncher's chance. I would say they're they look like heavyweight sluggers right now. I wouldn't want to face them if I was any team.
I feel like we kind of just skipped right over the Seahawks. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Seahawks, Ray. Why did they lose?
They're just they had so many flaws on offense. They ran well last week against the Lions, but their offensive line is so piecemeal. They're starting guys who've never played offensive line since high school. They spent so much on their defense, and it's just relying on Russell Wilson. Though Russell Wilson did come back, and he looked healthy for the first time all season last game on his scrambles, but they really need to upgrade their offensive line, keep him safe.
How about the defense? Do you think they performed well enough?
They lost Earl Thomas, and that really ruined their secondary. And it came out today that Richard Sherman's injured. I think at some point their backup safety also got injured. They were playing the third string free safety.
So Richard Sherman was injured? I don't think I saw him on the injury report before the game. Is that new?
Yeah, they got in trouble for not reporting his injury.
Did they really?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. I mean, there was going back to the Russell Wilson and the offensive line. There's a play where he dropped back and his center stepped on his foot, and they end up in a safety. Obviously you're gonna have fluke plays. I'm not saying that just because their offensive line is bad that necessarily happened. I think that can happen too.
You know what's the worst part about that, though? That happened last week as well. In a similar play where Russell Wilson got tripped up on a handoff, except that time he was able to pass the ball off to Rawls before he fell over. This time he just fell over for the safety.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be something they'd clean up within the week, but it still happened.
I mean, I don't think you can. I don't think you can really teach that much in the span of a week. It's offensive line is. I think across the league, there's a trend where offensive lines are not performing. The theory's actually been floated by some of the former offensive linemen that, Sean O'Hara, he mentioned that it's due to the new CBA where players aren't allowed to have contact with the team, and in the past they'd spend a lot of time integrating with each other. You don't have that anymore, and I think that's one of the causes. I think the other cause is the Seahawks just need to invest heavily in offensive line, whether it's tackles, guards, just across the board. Well,
they just paid Bennett a whole lot of money, so I think they have even less cap room for next year.
Yeah, yeah. You hear about Michael Bennett talking crap to the reporter.
Oh, his interview?
He basically
fantastic.
Some reporter was asking for, or kind of prodding him for his reaction, and he said something along the lines of, "Oh, what have you gone through?" The dude was a cancer survivor or something like that. Anyways, I think we can move on to our next game. Packers Cowboys. I think this is a far more interesting game than Falcons Seahawks. Let's start with the game itself. So Aaron Rodgers, I think, went buck wild. And to my surprise, Dak Prescott, I think he also performed very admirably. I've been very critical of Dak over the season, but he performed.
Definitely. That was easily one of the best game of the weekend. Probably one of the best games I've ever seen. And I thought Dak would crumble in the first round of the playoffs. I didn't think he'd be able to play as well as he did. And even though they lost, that game was not on him. If anything, I would say the game's kind of on clock management. But I don't know if I agree with the play call at the end there. They had about 50 seconds to go. It was 3rd and 3. They were on the Green Bay 33. And they chose to pass, which led to an incomplete. And when they kicked the field goal, that gave Rodgers, 45 seconds left, which was more than enough time for him to do his magic. So I kind of questioned the play calling there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's going to sound crazy when you say that Zeke Elliott had 22 carries, but I think they could have given him a few more. He ran very well, 125 yards rushing.
I think it might just be coming from a Giants fan, seeing the Giants mismanage the clock like that so many times. Not so much this year, but in past years, especially last year. Just seeing the Cowboys do that was a little painful, as much as I wanted to see the Cowboys lose.
Yeah, I think part of I think part of why Dak was so successful is I don't think the Packers did a good job of selling out to stop the run and really forcing him to beat them solely through the air. I think they had a really good balance Dallas had a really good balance, and the threat of the run was able to give Dak a lot of the time he needed to work with to generate the plays.
So a few things, right? So Ken, you pointed out the end of the game. I actually thought it was the previous play when they had about 50 seconds left, and rather than calling a timeout on the first down, they spiked the ball, and it gave them only 2 downs to get 10 more yards.
That too.
They actually kept a timeout for no reason.
And they ended up blowing it just to try and ice the kicker.
Absolutely. So they blew at that point. I thought the Packers did sell out to stop the run, to stop Zeke. They kept putting Des Bryant one-on-one coverage against that corner Gunther, and he kept getting burned. It was actually quite fun to see Des Bryant step up for the first time in the playoff game. It was his first time catching a touchdown, which surprised me. I mean, Des has been in the league for so many years now, and it's his first playoff touchdown reception.
Really? Yeah, I'm happy for Des. He's a great player. I think he plays the right way. I know he has a lot of critics who get on him for his tantrums on the sideline, but I think it's as long as you're not taking away from the team and you bring your A game on the field, I'm happy with that.
What about on the other side of the ball?
For a little bit? We haven't really covered them too much. So Aaron Rodgers has really found a connection with Jared Cook and with Randall Cobb. Cobb last week, he had something like 2 touchdowns. This week he had a really big catch on right on the sidelines. Jared Cook performed six receptions, 104 yards, 1 TD. Richard Rodgers had a long shot TD as well. What do you guys think about how Aaron Rodgers is performing right now, and how would you stop him?
I don't know if you can stop him. I think he's a magician. But going back to Randall Cobb, I thought this was something that's kind of been missing from the Packers for almost the entire season. Like if you go back, you think about previous years, when you think about Randall Cobb, what always comes to mind for me is when watching plays fall apart and then go into a scramble drill and Cobb somehow gets open and Rodgers is able to find him. This is what we just haven't seen much of at all this year. And it started up again last week against the Giants, where Cobb was able to get that on a touchdown. And it happened again this week. And I feel like it's this revival of their connection helped pick up the Packers.
Yeah.
Jared Cook, I was actually extremely excited for him in the beginning of the season. I thought he'd be a great player for the Packers. He's just always been extremely athletic, huge target, pretty good hands too. It's just that he's played on terrible teams in the past, but I feel like he would kind of fill in that Jermichael Finley role that we saw in the past, except that Finley had terrible hands. I thought he'd be Finley with an upgrade, and we're finally seeing that come to fruition.
I think that's really well said. In the past, I've always been frustrated by Jared Cook because he seems like a JaVale McGee type of guy where, all the tools are there. Just can't put them together. And he's been putting it together and really stepping up in the absence of Jordy. I think if you watched that team yesterday, I didn't even feel like they needed Jordy. Obviously, he generates great plays for them still, but I feel they should feel pretty confident going into the NFC Championship against the Falcons.
Do you agree with that, Ray? That they don't need Jordy?
Jordy Nelson led the league in touchdown receptions, and he was like second or third in yards. So they absolutely could use someone of that caliber. But when Aaron Rodgers is hot, there's really nothing like it. But one thing that concerns me is the Packers' running game. Ty Montgomery's great, but he's not a running back. He's a wide receiver back there, just making moves, being shifty. They going into the Falcons. I don't know how. One thing that concerned me yesterday while watching the game was how, if the Packers had the lead, how are they going to run down the clock in the fourth quarter? And they weren't able to. The Cowboys came back and tied the game late.
That's a great point.
I actually had a question about that because I always thought Kristen Michael would come in and fill that role. They use Montgomery as that shifty back, and if they need power running, that's what Michael was there for. I thought that was why they brought him on, and he didn't get a single carry yesterday.
Yeah,
No,
Michael saw minutes in the Giants game. He definitely had some big runs at the end of the game to kind of kill the clock and really seal the game for them. So you're right. I'm surprised that they didn't give him any carries. I see Aaron Rapowski got a bunch of carries. Didn't do so badly on them. I mean, I think I'm wondering if that's who they're just bringing in for.
Well, that's
one
their
reason or
fullback. Rakowski's
Yeah.
always kind of been there.
I mean, at some point, you're 80% of the plays you're running are pass plays. How would you ever run down the clock when you have the lead in the fourth quarter?
just got to run up the score.
Yeah. So let's talk about the actual Packers Falcons matchup. How do you guys see this game playing out? Kenny, we'll start with you.
I think the biggest question for me is what are they going to do about Julio? The Packers have lost so many cornerbacks throughout the season. They've had so many injuries that I don't even know who you put on Julio at this point. Who was the name of the guy they had on Dez? You said, Ray? Gunther?
Gunther, he was absolute garbage.
Like, is that going to be the solution for Julio as well? I don't know how they're going to stop him.
Yeah, well, I feel like so I'm less concerned about Julio if I were Green Bay, and I would actually be more concerned with Gabriel. The reason why is they've demonstrated an inability to deal with burners. I don't know that Dez is quite a burner at this point anymore, but he's that vertical threat. In the first game against the Giants, the Giants had a whole bunch of plays where they just flat out burned the outside corner. They dropped the ball, so those didn't necessarily translate to anything, but I think they've demonstrated that type of vulnerability. Of course, Julio's a great player. You got to focus on him as well. But I feel like it's more that speed threat that is going to really challenge them.
I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Another big part of the Falcons offense is Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. I actually feel like they might not be as effective this game because on the defensive side for the Packers, I think their strength, and I kind of say that weakly because I don't think this is a very strong defense, but what they're best at is stopping the run. They showed that earlier in the year where they were able to crush a lot of rushing teams, and that their real weakness has always been the secondary. So I still feel like Julio is going to be the one that picks them apart.
So one thing I want to bring up before we go any further, the line right now, Atlanta is favored by 4.5. So adjusting for home field advantage, Vegas thinks Atlanta is a slightly better team. The over-under is 61 points, which is the second highest over-under in NFL playoff history, only behind the Seattle-San Francisco game in 2001. And it's by far the highest for any conference championship game. So the expectation here is it's definitely going to be a shootout, something 30-31, 33-28, that type of game, which I think seems pretty accurate at first glance. I can't see either team generating any stops. I think this is going to be real high scoring and up and down the field.
Oh, I agree. It's got me excited. As a fantasy buff, I love high scoring games. And this seems like it's going to be the perfect one to watch.
I also felt the same way about Saints Giants this year, though. So,
well, that was the biggest disappointment in comparison.
Yeah, I feel like it actually wouldn't be a surprise if Atlanta came out and they just tried to run it down Green Bay's throat and just a very a lot of short passes, a lot of screens to Tevin Coleman. Freeman's a receiving threat as well, and just kind of pounding the defense, and a lot of short passes before they set up the deep threat. I could see them winning the time of possession battle. I feel like Green Bay, on the other hand, like we said, they don't have that run game element, so I think they're going to be more, quick strikes, slants, a lot of variety in their passing game. So I think Atlanta's going to be able to control the time of possession. I don't know what that means in terms of the game, though.
So let's talk about that. Let's move into predictions. What are your ideas for the game? How do you think this is going to turn out?
So like I started this podcast saying I'm for the Falcons this weekend. They just have a better running game. I think they have better receivers. They could put pressure from their front four with Vic Beasley. They're at home, which is a big deal. They like their crowds are loud. They pump noise. They're just an all around team, and they're legit.
See, I feel the same way on paper, but at the same time, the Falcons have been here before many times in the past, and they've fallen apart. And I really want to believe that this is going to be their year. This is the year where they live up to it all and they're able to not crumble in the playoffs. But so I'm going to have to go with the Falcons too, but I'm a little skeptical.
I can see that. They've been 13-3 the last 2 years, and they kind of fell apart towards the end. But this year it just feels different. With Devontae Freeman, he started so hot last year, but he faded the last 8 games. I think just the rise of Tevin Coleman, they have a bit more depth. They've really kept themselves healthy this year, so they look good. I'm excited.
I got to take the Falcons, but as a fan of Atlanta sports in general, I think there's a well-known Atlanta sports curse where you just set yourself up for low expectations. I think the Falcons take it. I don't think they cover. I think it's going to be like a 1-point, 2-point game on a field goal, which would be very karmic justice considering how the Packers won. I think we've about covered the NFC side. Do you guys want to move on to the AFC?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's talk about the Patriots and the Texans. I don't think there's too much to say about the Texans, to be honest. We could talk about Osweiler and if we think he's, the future. I think they got to find a better QB. There's too much talent on the defense and the rest of the team to let a shitty QB set them back.
See, I kind of questioned that a little bit. For most of the year, I definitely agree. Osweiler's just been awful. But at the same time, he's pretty young, and when he wasn't asked to do too much, he was okay, and he was able to get the Texans some wins. And in this game in particular, he wasn't great. I'll admit that. But the first half of the game, he played decently. He had some good throws as well. There was a touchdown that was dropped by Fedorowicz. And then later on, there was another huge throw by Brock. This was actually an incredible that was dropped by Fuller. So in this game in particular, I don't think it's really Brock's fault. He was put into a position where he had to deliver and put up huge points in the end, and that's just not where he excels. That's not where he shines. And he shouldn't have been in that position if the rest of the team could help execute as well.
Ray, you had a point?
So what happened to the run game? What happened to Lamar Miller?
I mean, they ran a little bit. It's not like he didn't get any carries, but they just kind of abandoned the run later on.
Yeah,
they fell behind in the second half.
Someone on Houston's starting line got injured at some point. I want to say the tackle in the center. They had some injuries earlier. I don't know if those injuries got resolved or if they had a fully healthy line. So that would be a partial explanation. The New England's run defense is also really stout. I mean, their defense on both sides of the ball or both aspects of the game are really good. If you look at their yards per attempt, they're easily within the top 10 for both. And so I don't think it should be too much of a surprise that Houston couldn't run the ball freely. Kenny, I got to disagree with you on Brock. I think you're setting the standard pretty low there. I mean, yeah, his team could have helped him out better. He had three picks in the game. That's mostly on him.
Well, the first pick was definitely his fault. I feel like the second and the third, well, I can't remember when the second was. One of them was just an awful throw. But I feel like he shouldn't have had to be in that position to try and rush and put up points.
No, watching the game, Brock Osweiler was not the reason they lost. Their offense had some big drops. He could have easily had 3 touchdowns as instead of just the one he had. But Kenny, do you see Tony Romo going to the Texans next year?
Ooh, that's interesting.
I saw that rumor.
That is really interesting.
I like it. I like it for the Texans.
I would love to see that happen. Because part of me also loves Romo. I never want to see him win because he's on the Cowboys. But seeing him on the Texans and win there, I'm okay with that.
They're saying it's likely. You know, it's a winning situation. It's an easy division, AFC South. It's in state, separate conference though. So Jerry has no concerns about trading him.
Is that doable with when does his contract end?
I mean, for the numbers, it's doable. It's a much likely situation than Denver, which doesn't really have that much cap. And there's really no other teams.
Because Romo's that guy that
what do you think would be the going price for Tony Romo at this stage in his career with all the injuries?
I think you take a 5th round pick and a condition to a 4th if you make the playoffs or some sort of deal like that.
Oh, I don't know that necessarily gets it done. I mean, we're in a league where Sam Bradford got traded for firsts multiple years in a row. Obviously, Sam is younger and healthier, but it's not like Sam Bradford has not had an injury history of his own.
Sam Bradford's 10 years younger, and I think Jerry will respect Tony's wishes to be traded to a contender.
I think they can get better than a conditional 5th. I would say something like a conditional 3rd, where you, depending on whether they make the playoffs or even win the Super Bowl, that protection gets reduced. But let's talk about the Patriots, because we spent a lot of time talking about the Texans. The Patriots, actually, what is there to say about the Patriots? They're a juggernaut, like always. Julian Edelman had a huge game, a lot of big catches, made a lot of plays.
I think that's it. It's basically what you said. We all thought they were offensive juggernauts, and they proved it once again. That's just who they are. They're a top-tier team. They're definitely the team to beat.
I think they're going to miss Gronk eventually. If not the next game, then in the Super Bowl. They're not getting any production from Bennett. It's simply Julian Edelman, Chris Hogan stretching it deep, and Deion Lewis, right there, which is still questionable on the run game, but they're really missing that X factor, which was Gronk, and I think it's gonna show up.
Instead of a bunch of Wes Welkers.
Yeah.
I heard they signed Griff Whalen too, so now they have a 3rd Wes Welker. Well, actually a 4th if you count Amendola.
Lord knows how Brady makes it work. Ray, what do you think about Deion Lewis? You don't consider him an X factor? You know, he can run, he can catch, he can return.
He can do it all, just like you said.
He could do it all, but do you see them having a 20 carry 100-yard game from Deion Lewis? Maybe spread across LeGarrette Blount, but still, to me in the playoffs when it's cold outside, I want that running back that can get you 4 or 5 yards of carry, and I don't see Deion Lewis getting it right now.
So that would be Blount. You see this as a Blount game.
Yeah, I mean, Deion Lewis got 13 carries for 41 yards, so that's what 3 yards a carry. That's not going to cut it.
I think he thrives in the passing game, and apparently on special teams too.
He's just such a versatile back. I really like Deion Lewis a lot. I do feel like he looks visibly slower than he did last year. I don't know if that's just a notion I have of him or if it's actually true, but he doesn't seem as explosive. But
yes,
he was never explosive.
Back. And he fumbled twice too. I mean, I want a running back I can trust in the playoffs, and fumbling twice is not going to cut it.
Okay, so let's talk about the Steelers Chiefs real quickly, and then we'll get on to the Patriots Steelers matchup. What is there to say about the Steelers Chiefs? I think the Steelers, they didn't win convincingly over the Chiefs, but I don't really want to take that against them because I think the Chiefs are a really good team. I was worried that the Chiefs wouldn't be able to generate the points to beat the Steelers, and that turned out to be the case. I will say that the Steelers, I would have expected it to be a little bit higher scoring. and the fact that they only put up 18 points against the Chiefs, I don't think that they should be expected to put up too much more against the Patriots. As I said earlier, the Patriots were the number 1 ranked defense in regular season. So I think that's going to be a tough matchup for them.
Points for the Steelers is a little misleading for how effective their offense was. I mean, yeah, they could not get touchdowns. They got 6 field goals. They were able to get a ton of yardage, move the ball up and down the field almost at will. They just couldn't get into the end zone, which is definitely a problem. But I'm not sure we'll see the same of that against the Patriots.
I mean, that's the Bill Belichick philosophy, though, right? Bend, don't break. So Belichick operates the exact same philosophy. I don't know that you should expect it to be too much different.
Maybe I just have too much hope.
Agreed. The Steelers were moving the ball up and down against the Chiefs, and it was actually quite impressive how fast they got into field goal range almost every drive. They just couldn't really punch it in.
Yeah.
Okay. So then for the actual, do we have anything to say about the Chiefs?
I am so disappointed in the Chiefs for not being able to win this game.
Where was it they fell short?
I think their playmakers just didn't make plays. They had Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Spencer Ware. They none of them really performed average or even above average. Kelce had 5 receptions, 77 yards, but he had some big drops. Tyreek Hill for the most part was just a decoy. I mean, a lot of plays he was doing those running across the backfield and just getting fakes while Alex Smith, faked it to him. And then Spencer Ware only had 8 carries for 35 yards. You kind of expect your playmakers to do a bit more. For the most part, the Chiefs were a big play offense. If you look at Tyreek Hill the last few weeks, he's scoring all these 60-yard touchdowns and he didn't really get off. So good job to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers defense for really containing him.
Do you think Andy Reid should have run the ball more?
So you tell me, Mike. I think you followed Spencer Ware's season. What did he kind of slow down towards the end? I just thought he'd be better this game.
I don't know that I would say he slowed down. He was a little erratic in terms of games that he produced versus games that he didn't. He near the end of the season, he was he was still getting a lot of carries. His production wasn't as good as at the start of the season, but at the start of the season, he was performing phenomenally. So I don't really want to hold that against him. I think teams started figuring out he's not, he doesn't have the same ability as Jamal Charles. He's not as explosive. He's very good. He's kind of versatile. He's in that Dion Lewis space where he's versatile. I would say he's a little quicker than Dion Lewis and more explosive. But he doesn't have Jamal's ability to make something out of nothing. He needs his blocking, and I think he actually needs to get into rhythm a little bit more. I would have liked to see Andy Reid call more runs for him. Kansas City only had 12 designed runs compared to Pittsburgh at 34. And they aired it out 34 times, which, you think of Pittsburgh and their offense. Obviously, Bell's a huge threat, but I would have expected that. I would have expected Kansas City to have a lot more runs and much fewer passing attempts.
So let's play the what if game. Imagine Jamal Charles was healthy. We saw the Jamal Charles of old. If he was playing with the Chiefs yesterday, do you think they could have won?
Yes. I mean, that it's a 2-point margin of victory. Jamal Charles of old, he didn't really need that many touches to do a lot of damage. You could give him, 8 carries and you get, 50, 60 yards and a touchdown off of that. And you mix in, if you keep in Spencer Ware as well, I think that's a lot more of a threat. That's just my take.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel like the Steelers' weakness is they can be run on, and the Chiefs they couldn't take advantage of that.
So actually talking about the Steelers' weakness, let's go to the matchup against the Patriots. Right now, New England is favored by 6. and it's projected to be a moderate scoring game, over under of 51. So, 27-24 type of game. I feel like the Pats should be favored by a lot more than that. And for the reason we talked about, New England defense is really stout. They don't give up a lot of points. They actually, if you adjust for their the amount of plays they give to the other team, they actually are pretty good on both the run defense and the passing defense as well. I just think they're a better team than the Steelers overall. Even if you remove, obviously the Steelers, they have better playmakers, but as a team, I like the Patriots more.
I agree with that. That no question. I think the Patriots are a better team. The thing about the Steelers is this is a team that when they get hot, they're hot, and they're unbeatable when they're hot. So if that happens, I don't think it's completely unreasonable to see the Steelers beat the Patriots. Although, if I had to pick, I'm going with the Patriots.
I agree. The 4Bs now with Boswell being added there now along with Bell, Brown, and Roethlisberger.
Is that what they're saying? The 4Bs?
The 4Bs. The 4Bs. They're so good when they're hot. When Bell, Brown are just feeding off Roethlisberger's playmaking. But it's so tough to go into Foxborough and just beat the Patriots. But with the line of 6, I actually think it's more. I can't see it being anything more than a toss-up right now. I would give the Pats, 3 points for home, but otherwise, I think these teams are fairly even. And this is coming from a guy who didn't think very highly of the Steelers when the playoffs started. They've really impressed me.
So let's rewind for a second. I want to talk about Blunt. You see this as a game where Blunt's going to pound the ball, and I also see the Steelers' weakness as in their rush D. So I also see this as a Blunt game. I think the most interesting part about this is that Blunt came from the Steelers a few years ago. It's almost like he's going to have a chance to get revenge on his own team.
You know what the Pats should do? They should send Blunt out to just hang out with Le'Veon Bell and just smoke him out and then get him a DNP suspension.
That's a solid strategy.
Completely valid.
And Martavis Bryant comes out of nowhere to join.
I think he would fall for that, and I'm sure.
And they should all post it on social media.
Are you referring to Antonio Brown?
Absolutely.
Can we talk about that? What the hell is he doing?
Wait, recap the situation first for us, Kenny.
What was that?
Oh, tell us what happened with Antonio Brown and social media.
I can't really explain it. So I saw a video where he seems to be he's just videoing himself while in the locker room, and in the background you can hear Tomlin talking.
Yeah, so Mike Tomlin goes, keep a low key on social media, and Antonio Brown's filming it on Facebook Live and sharing it with the world.
As much as I love Antonio Brown, sometimes I feel like he makes kind of dumb moves.
That's hilarious, though. Actually, so hypothetically, if Brown and Bell got suspended, what would the total line be then?
Is there a team anymore?
What was the Texans line? 16?
16?
I actually think it'd be like 12, which tells you how bad the Texans were. It'd be less than that. So.
All right. What are our actual predictions? I think we have the Pats winning across the board, but I think it's a question on spread, right? Or margin of victory.
Well, I'm going to have to go with the Pats. As an Asian person, I cannot go with the 4Bs. My parents would say that's unacceptable. 4 A's is okay, but not 4Bs, so I'm going with the Pats.
Do they cover the 6 points?
I think so. Even though I think the Steelers could get hot and possibly win, I don't think that's going to happen here. I think Belichick will find a way to plan for that. He'll scheme for it to shut them down somehow, and Pats will take it.
So my mind tells me the spread is reasonable, and that everything from like a stats perspective, I think you should take the spread. but Pittsburgh has a puncher's chance, right? We're going back to boxing. They're that team that, they can easily just land a knockout blow at any time.
You're referring to the hit on Conley? Or the hit on Matt Murray the week
I don't
before?
think that hit was dirty. You can't if a guy's like going to the ground and you need to lay a tackle on him, I don't see how you avoid hitting him that low or hitting him in the head. The alternative, you just let him make the catch and then you tap him down, which I don't think is great. Ray's telling me I need to stay on topic. All right. I think the Steelers have a puncher's chance, so I wouldn't bet the game, but I think the Pats have to be favorites.
So did they cover?
Yes, but I wouldn't bet the game. I'd stay far, far away from the game.
All right. Well, in the official predictions, you are betting the game.
I'm betting the game, so I'll take Pats by 6.
All right. I'm going to take the Pats cover as well for all of the above reasons.
And since Johnny's not here today, can we take a quick look at his predictions and see what he said?
Johnny actually picked the Patriots from the very beginning, so I don't know if has them covering or not, but he did pick the Patriots.
Damn it.
To win?
No, he has the Packers winning it all.
Oh, but that's his like revised prediction, right?
No, he's had the Packers since the beginning. His only reversal was the Steelers, who won, and Seattle, who lost.
Okay. Anything else that we need to cover today? If not, then thank you guys for joining us and listening. This has been The Banana Stand, episode 5.